So hello and welcome to my training portal. For those of you who've taken the servant leadership training or one of the other courses, thank you for coming back for sales behavior training. For those of you joining me for this sales behavior training, thanks for your trust. Similar to all the programs, I'm going to train 5 individual modules in the sales behavior process to add accounts and grow revenue from existing accounts. This is pretty applicable for most B2B businesses and quite a few B2C, to be quite frank, and I'll give examples all the way through. But what you've got today is the first module of 5 sales behaviors to allow you to be successful that I want to transfer through this 1 hour training. And the first one is researching and connecting. You know, I got to give full kudos to a guy by the name of Ron Tite because it's the first time I heard it. Ron mentioned, people are tired of being pitch slapped. And that happens online, it happens on phone calls, and we have this tendency to want to barf out why someone should buy what we have. But we have no patience to do a little bit of research first so we can connect with that potential prospect or audience. And so through the theme of this course, you're going to hear me talk a lot, and through the 5 modules, a lot about this, okay? And so this is the art of inquiry versus advocacy. Okay, so when you think about inquiry, it's about finding out, it's about investigating, it's about asking questions to fully understand. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about today research in this training and connection. We do that through probing and then paraphrasing our comments back. But another key behavior in sales is, where salespeople want to jump naturally, which is advocacy. Here's why my product is good for you. Here's why it's the best in the market. Here's why it's the best price. And we're going to talk about how you advocate after you've inquired to put those two things together. Because people want to know that you understand their problem and you're best positioned to solve it. We as sales professionals want to jump to advocacy all the time. And so in the context of these 5 modules that I'm going to train, and again, starting today with this first one that you've joined us for, we're going to talk about researching, connecting, and how to do that through the art of inquiry. And then a little bit of advocacy of why we should potentially have a further conversation with a prospect, my apologies. But when we talk advocacy down the modules, we're going to talk about the value equation and service and quality over price, and why you need to demonstrate those in the context of the client's needs for them to view that you have the best value and take that decision to pick you over their current provider or other providers. And then we're going to talk about those proof points and how you demonstrate that to give them real live examples to reduce the risk, because we know which side of the value equation is most important to them. And then how do you deliver that and how you've done it for others. Talk about the art of paraphrasing again, and that's summarizing all these things that are important to them and how we can deliver that solution. And then, yes, we're going to talk about the soft close leading to the hard close, right? So you will hear some old school sales language out of me, but you're not going to hear a lot of the ABC always be closing out of me, okay? We're going to talk a lot about really finding out a customer's needs, best positioning your ability to solve those needs better than anyone else in the marketplace. Okay, so I'm going to move my little flip chart aside. So for those of you who've gone through these videos before, you know my routine. So I'm going to bring up the deck, so the actual training deck that I train within organizations corporately. And again, normally I do the deck and we do exercises live and there's role plays and certification. So what you're going to get out of this is 1 hour of content. And you're also going to get the form that you can do to prepare your sales presentation, okay? And the second, not module, but training courses on prospecting. But today I'm going to help you a little bit on how to research and connect before a sales meeting. And we're going to talk about those behaviors. The prospecting session is really about, okay, emails, CRM, phone calls, voicemail, those different behaviors in trying to break through. I decided I'd start with the assumption that you've broken through and you've got a meeting, or you've got a sales opportunity, or you've got a transactional opportunity, and I'm going to train you the behaviors on how to prepare for that. So again, today we're doing research and connecting. I will show the deck, and then I will take the form up, my sales track form, and we will talk about the first of the 5 behaviors as you've purchased this one module, but you will see the other 5 in that form. But again, the context is, here's the philosophy, here's the science behind it, here's the theory. Okay, now here's a form. You can use this form to prepare, and let me give you some examples of what that would look like. So ideally, We've got it all wrapped in a nice pretty bowl for you. You can take away, you can download the form as much as you want. You can come back to this video as much as you want. And you should be prepared to have an impact on clients unlike anyone in your industry and anybody you're competing against. Because this is the way that people want to be treated. And hence you can best demonstrate why your product's the best. Okay, so enough of that. We'll see how you feel by the end of this. So I'm going to share the screen and we're going to go straight into the presentation. Okay, I'm sure you can all see that now. So I call this, I've built this training in multiple organizations and multiple industries, and I've tweaked it through the years, and now I have it for e-commerce. The last time I built this training, I was in the home building industry, and I built it for our sales team within a pretty big builder here in the province of Ontario. And of course, the corny connection to home building, I called it foundation training because everything falls apart if you don't have these key behaviors. And I was tempted to change that, but I really think it's a great title. Any sales success comes from key behaviors. And those are the foundation of your sales success. Those things that you do repeatedly that cause a result are what holds up your career and your results. So what I want to do is transfer those to you today. So today is the behavior-based foundation training, the skills to acquire new business and grow existing. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what are those 5 key behaviors in this foundation training? Well, the one we're talking about in this module is researching and connecting. Subsequential ones are gathering needs, sharing ideas, and differentiating, gaining commitments to meet, discuss, and clarify those detailed needs, confirming a go forward and building value, so getting that close. And then the last one, even though it can fall anywhere through the process, is how to overcome objections. The behaviors to be used at any point throughout the process. So, how do we confirm the objection? How do we get a commitment that if we can overcome it, the customer will move forward? How do we paraphrase the customer's concerns and objection? When we've demonstrated to them, how do we confirm that they're on board? And then how do we ask for the sale again? So that is on the 5th behavior. But today we're going to focus on research and connecting. So let's talk a little bit about that. Getting to know your customer. So I'm going to right now pull up, take you out of this slide for a moment and bring back my lovely flip chart with my amazing handwriting. Okay, there's 3 things we want to do, really, that are core to this first behavior in the sales process. We just said we want to connect. That's our goal, is to connect with our potential client or prospect. And here's how we used to connect in the sales world. We'd buy a prospect list from Dun & Bradstreet or Hoover's or whatever the different names and lists were out there. Excuse my being removed from the printing days for quite a while. And we'd throw someone on a phone and we'd say, call a bunch of people and see if they need any printing. And we'd pick up the phone and we'd say, hey, Dina, it's Mark from, Printing Company 123. Do you need any business cards? Or tell me about your printing needs. And that person on the other end of that call has received that phone call from every printer in the country before. They either have a current provider or they're not interested in your service. And there's one reason why. They know you know nothing about them. They know that the agenda is yours. All you're prepared to do is advocate. And so remember, we talked about inquiry versus advocacy, and we're going to focus on inquiry during this first behavior. So the best way to connect is through inquiry. It's through asking a lot of open-ended questions about the customer's business, finding out about their needs, finding out about what they value. Having said that, the customer isn't necessarily going to engage with you if you're just starting a cold relationship with no understanding of who they are, and you start asking questions that are clearly aligned around your offering. And so what we want to do is we want to find out a little bit more about the prospect, the individual that we want to sell to, and the company's needs. Because you got to solve 2 needs for a prospect. You got to solve their needs and their accountability, which usually are tied to the business's needs. Now, the most successful salespeople are great investigators. So what they're going to do is they're going to find out before they pick up that phone what that client cares about. They're going to find out what that business is about. And then what they're going to try and do is they're going to start to prepare how that aligns with their offering. And so when the conversation starts with, I've done a little research, it sounds like you do this, please explain to me what your priorities are. Hey, saw that you guys opened a new location, that's so amazing, how are you managing this? All of those are aligned to those inquiry needs, where now later down the road, I'm going to advocate. I'm going to say, geez, I think I have a solution that can solve that problem. Would you like to talk more? Or how much time do you have to talk today? Anyways, I'll get into that a little deeper, but the best sales professionals are investigators. I'm going to give you a perfect example. And I'm going to take a few moments to share this because I think it's one of the stories that will illustrate why listening to these 5 behaviors are important, and most specifically the first one today. I was the vice president of sales and marketing at one of Canada's biggest printers. Okay, we had 10,000 B2B accounts across the country, 70 branches. And prior to that, I had worked for one of Canada's biggest sports and entertainment companies. And one of their biggest revenue generation pieces in that company is corporate sponsorship. So, you know, the ads on the boards or the night in the suite or activation in the arena. And so through that connection, a gentleman came in who was awesome, still friends with him today, love the guy, did his job, did it well, and pitched me on their package and said, you know what, we can help you host, we're going to build you this entire package. You're going to get your printing name on the boards during this hockey team's games. You guys can put 2 and 2 together. You know where I live. This hockey team's games. And by the way, on top of that, we're going to give you a suite for a third of the season, and you're going to be able to host your clients. And then lastly, we're going to give you an in-arena activation. Great. And by the way, it's $1 million. Okay. That's the value they provide. But there's no research into what my company does. Had they have researched what my company, and the deal didn't land. It was just too much of an expense, and I'll explain why. And it wasn't that the company wasn't prepared to pay $1 million on a sponsorship deal. Let me explain where the gap happened. They came in with a package, and it was that package or the highway, because that's what they sold to everybody else. And they were a big player and owned the market, so quite frankly, they could carry themselves that way. But here's where they lost the opportunity, which will illustrate why I want you to do these things really well in connecting and inquiring. One, the personal connection was done because this individual knew me. I respected him, he knew that, got the meeting, enjoyed working with the guy, still do. But no research really on what we did. You know, they've got a corporate pitch deck that they clearly slap out, the prospect's logo and throw it in the deck and take a few points from a website, but no real understanding of my business or inquiry about my business and how I drove accounts into that business. And so what happened was, oh, well, you get the suites and you get tickets. Well, the reality is when you have 70 branches across the country and only a certain amount of them are in that city's market, again, you guys can figure it out, you're not actually solving the bigger business need, which is growing national accounts and impacting all of the branches. And so that had a little less of an impact. And then the decision maker on our end, the print buyer, usually wasn't allowed to accept those entertainment gifts. So there was no value for them being in the suite. And quite frankly, 80% of our branches would never get to take advantage of this. So we're actually going to demotivate our staff and our clients, and it's going to be that big city thing again. And broadcast, because we were B2B and we weren't B2C, impressions on a TV broadcast on a Saturday night, although important, didn't carry the same value as a traditional consumer products brand, where the large majority of the population is a potential client. So what you're hearing is, yeah, there was some connection, but there was no inquiry, so they could come to me with a package that said, hey, we see what you're about, and normally we sell this. But you know that one activation night that we do where we allow people to come in and expose the 20,000 fans at the game to your product? We think you probably get more value out of doing that more frequently and getting in front of that crowd and demonstrating your product to them. because you got most of your branches across the country. So let's up the game and build your Toronto market by exposing people to your product. Say I just went and said the city. I knew that was going to happen, and I'm not re-recording this video. Um, and let's get them touching and feeling the product versus giving you, another two clients in the suite. We agree with you. We don't see the value. Let's do that, and let's think about national. So we do know you have a bunch of branches across the country. And our digital footprint is a very strong one. There's fans of this team across the nation. So what we're going to do is going to mix our package up a little bit, and we're going to give you that broadcast board, even though it's hard for B2B, but at least you'll get that impression across the country on our national broadcast. But we know you go coast to coast, so we're going to spend a little more on the digital partnership. So people all across the web, across the country, will see you attached to our brand. We're going to give you some activation. We're going to let you sell some videos on our site. And we're going to take away the entertaining component of the $1 million spend. And we're going to grow the national exposure. Now, I'm not a corporate sponsorship guy, but I'm an ideas guy. And had they have understood our business better, they would have done one of two things. They would have tried to have customized that big spend, or they would have come in with a smaller one with just the activation pieces that we would have an appetite to do based on our business model. But they came in heavy, there was no flexibility, and they wanted $1 million. Didn't happen. Now that organization down the road went and did a local sponsorship with a local professional sports team that benefited that local marketplace at a much smaller risk tolerance. And so that individual who ever sold it did a good job of saying, hey, wait a second, let's just work on your 3 branches in this city. And here's your investment to do that. And here's how we activate it at the games. And here's how it shows up in the local broadcast, et cetera. So again, the example I'm giving, the reason I spend so much time sharing that is now you can see how important that is. It wasn't that the money wasn't there, is that the person selling the service didn't understand our business. Okay, so I want to teach you that today. Out of the 5 steps that you're going to get in this entire training, and this module specifically, this is the most important one. This is the differentiator. Asking for the sale is easy when you're doing a soft close all the way along. And you're building a connection because you know a little bit about them. You're showing that respect. You're standing out. You show up differently. It's engaging them in a conversation. You're paraphrasing their needs, and then you're demonstrating how you best service those needs and why you're different. And all the way along, you're doing a soft close and bringing the client along with you where they can say, stop, that's not right. That's not what we do. Versus jamming your product down their throat. And that's advocacy. You do want to advocate, but you got to advocate after you inquire. And so it's the balance of both. So let me go back to the slide for a moment. I hope that story explained the impact and give you a good real life example of what that looks like. So we're going to do a couple things here. Whoops, I realize I'm just not sharing my screen. Hang tight with me, everybody. We're going to do 3 things here. We are going to find out how to get to know our customer, how to ask a non-selling related question, and then get the customer saying yes to a further commitment in dialogue so we can continue down the road of presenting our product after we've understood their needs. So this is your ability to get someone to get engaged in the sales conversation. So let me start with number 1. Okay, so getting to know your customer. So this is where when you're going to either place a cold call or you've got a meeting set up and you're meeting the person for the first time and they're coming in to talk about your service, or you're going to them, before you engage in that dialogue, you want to find out what they do, what they're accountable for, anything personal about them, and then you want to find out about the company. So you want to do some inquiry on personal, and you want to do some inquiry on corporate. So what's the organization's goal? Okay, before I explain how to use these, okay, I'm going to tell you how to get the data and how to look for it first. And then we're going to go into how do you use them in a NSR, a non-selling related question, both personal and professional. And then we're going to teach you how to use those to engage in the sales dialogue and get them bought in. Because what normally happens after you start talking, they say, oh yeah, can you call me back? And what they're really saying is, I don't trust you, I don't know you, and I can't prioritize you right now. We're going to teach you how to do that. And we're going to teach you in a manner that I would feel customer for I would feel comfortable with a customer seeing my training and going, hey, that's not tricky sales stuff. That's the way I want to be treated. That's respect. That's not wasting my time. That's building a two-way relationship that at least I'd have the dialogue with you. Whether you're going to sell me or not, it's going to come up to the fact of whether you can solve my problem or do it better than anyone else. I feel real comfortable training this stuff because I could see a customer looking at it and going, yeah, I'm going to get sold what I need. And it makes sense. And that's where successful salespeople really distance themselves. So, where do you find out about someone personally? Where do you find out about somebody personally? There's a few sources. I'm going to tell you what to look for, but let's start with the locations. Number one, the safest one is LinkedIn, because now you're not getting personal yet until you've built a little bit of a relationship. There's less risk. It's a public forum. If you're connected, you can, or if they have an open profile, it's fair game. And you can find out about their role. You can find out about their company. And you can find out about their thought leadership. Okay, so if this individual, like yours truly, blogs a whole heck of a lot and they're very passionate about leadership, you can understand that and see how that comes in your conversation if it's relative to the product you sell. So, as an example, if a lead generation firm reached out to me on LinkedIn, it usually looks like, hi, Mark Business Coaching. I saw that you are a business coach in Canada and we help lots of business coaches. So please click on this link to come to our free webinar. You've all seen it. That's being called pitch slapped, right? Versus, hey, Mark, it's Dave. I was just on your LinkedIn profile. I've heard from a few people to follow you. I love your last blog on leadership. I'm curious about how you're getting that to more people. Would you be open to a conversation? Whoa, hold on a second. This guy looks different. This isn't someone coming to sell me lead generation with no accountability because they've seen it 100 times before. This guy maybe knows my business and wants to see how he can help me get to more people because I've declared that in my thought leadership platform on LinkedIn. Or it may be a role. Hey, Mark, you're a business coach. I see that. I'm in Guelph as well. I've been working with business coaches out there. If you're looking at getting more reach, that's what I do, and I'd love to talk a little more. That looks different than, oh my God, I've got this generation pitch slap speech that is customized to no one and copy and paste it. And then a little bit about the company, right? So if you've got a decision maker like a manager of marketing, and you know they're working for BMO, take a bank out, and you reach out and you say, hey, I see you're the manager of marketing at BMO. Interesting, I found your profile on LinkedIn. I was doing some research quite transparently, and I see that you guys are opening branches more aggressively this year based on your website on the West Coast. I think I've got a solution that can that can create cost efficiencies for your printing needs out on the West Coast, but more importantly, help you control your brand. So you still have say, but we can deliver it faster based on my production facilities out there and across the country. Would you like to hear a little more? Now that looks different. That's me finding out about their company needs, their personal needs, and anything they believe in. So LinkedIn is a great site and a safe one to do that. Okay. Then I would say Google. Okay, now use your judgment. So if you want to find out about Mark Pettipaw, the decision maker at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment at BMO Field in my past, well, you could Google me and you'll find my LinkedIn profile. You'll see if there's been any articles in the media about me or that I've been interviewed for, etc. And you can get some data there that's kind of cool that you might be able to connect with me personally by acknowledging that. Hey, Mark, I saw that cool article in the Globe and Mail about Bitchy the Hawk. You guys have a hawk in the stadium to keep seagulls away? Where did that come from? Now that looks different than someone reaching out to me to say, hey, by the way, I've got a new styrofoam cup to sell the stadium. Styrofoam's a bad word. We were back lead at Exhibition Place. They were paper-based cups, plant-based cups at the time. So styrofoam bad. But their agenda is to call me about my food and beverage business, but they're going to connect with me because they've researched me and they can make it a little personal. I got to see their title that they're the distributor for X cups out of North America. That's okay. Now I'm going to give them a phone call or talk to them a little more because they know a little bit more about me. before they start to advocate about these cups. Okay. And then lastly, yes, indeed, social media, um, with a big, huge, massive red flag, just the public social media sites. So, don't go creep someone's Facebook and say, hey, how was your daughter's dance recital yesterday? Not good, crossing the line. What you can say is very transparently, hey, I was doing some research on you and your business because I think I may be able to help. And I stumbled across the fact that you're a Habs fan too. How did you fall in love with the Habs? Now, that is a personal connection that's okay. It's sincere, it's authentic. You've been transparent that you're looking and you're showing respect by researching them before you reach out. And it's a nice connection point. Okay? But be very careful with social media. Corporations. So when you've done your research on the individual who you're going to have to talk to, so you're going to start here, and then your path is going to be into their corporate business because that's where you're going to grow your accounts. You're going to need to know a little bit about their business. Same, LinkedIn. And I'm going to give you examples of all of this as I take you through the form. So I'm just taking you through the theory, the philosophy behind it, and then I'm going to give you real live examples and I'll take you through the form. Okay, so corporations, LinkedIn, corp websites are always great. Companies are always, sharing news about what they're doing, what's important to them, their vision and values, their mission statements, their new projects, any media, corporate profiles of individuals on the leadership team. There's lots of cool stuff you can find out on corporate websites and corporate LinkedIn pages. And then again, Google and social media. And social media for corporate pages is fair game. There's very few lines you can cross because companies are smart enough to be careful about their brand and what they're putting out there under their corporate social media sites. But you can Google the company and you can find out the latest news. You can go to their website, all those things I talked about. And then again, their LinkedIn page is a great place to find out about who they are and what they believe in. Now, what are we looking for here? So this is great. The personal is just finding out a little bit about them so you can make a connection and start to build a little bit of trust. And again, be transparent that you've researched them and why. But then, what do you talk about their business? So here's where I'm going to give you probably the biggest pointer I can give you. You've got to, later on this training, I'm going to teach you about what I call your boomerang facts. Okay, and it's in a later chapter. And when you think about a boomerang, when you throw it out, if you throw it properly, it comes back. Well, what does your brand or your offering or your service do differently than anyone else? And you got to break that up into service and quality and price. So what are the differentiators in those three categories that when I, as a customer, shop someone else or have seen someone else's offering, it forces me back to you? And so the reason I talk about these boomerang facts a little early, and we'll dive deeper through the training, is you want to find out the things that can steer back to your boomerang facts. So let me give you an example. If you go to the company's website, and you hear that they are just invested in a fleet of Tesla trucks for their distribution centers across North America, because they're environmentally friendly, they've got the highest level of certification, and they've got all the old gas guzzlers off the road, and they've made this huge investment for Tesla. Well, let's assume you're a printer. Paper is bad, right? It's not bad. Some printers are doing it responsibly, and they have FSC certified paper, right? So it's responsibly forest. There's trees planted for everyone, cut down. They minimize the impact socially and economically when they cut down those trees, and the benefit to the planet as they replant them. And there's a whole environmental advantage of dealing with that printer. Okay. Well, when you pick up the phone and you call that person and you make that connection and you say, hey, just so you know, I was also doing a little research on your website. Wow, I didn't even realize there was Tesla 18-wheelers on the highway. And you guys made such a huge commitment to that because you're very green friendly. Talk to me about, like, how else does that show up in your business? Because I think I may be able to help actually, but how else does that show up in your business? And they're like, well, we actually try and find a green option for everything. And our company's goal is to reduce our carbon footprint by X. Now you've steered to your boomerang fact. And that printer's boomerang fact may be they're the only FSC certified printer in the country or in that region, or the #1 FSC certified. And now you can help them with their print procurement that they don't have today in aligning to their mission and values. Now, all of that, and I'm going to dive a little deeper, looks a whole heck of a lot different than, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Walmart buyer of print, you need any printing? But that's how we like to sell. Now, this takes work, but it doesn't take that much work. It takes behaviors. It takes a little time to prepare before you engage in the sales conversation to make sure you're aligned and build that connection. And this is all inquiry driven. I'm researching, I'm finding out what's important to you. I'm going to validate that when we talk. I'm going to find out how I can connect with you. I'm going to find out what your company believes in and where my company aligns, and even more importantly, if we can, differentiates in that belief. And now, when we've done that, I'm going to start to advocate at some point. But this is all the stuff that I said at the beginning of the video differentiates professional salespeople and people pushing their product. Okay? So I'm going to give you some examples. Again, real live examples of how to do these two things. Next, once you've done those, so again, find out something about them personally on LinkedIn, Google, social media. Be careful with social media. Don't cross any personal lines. But certainly favorite teams, activities, fair game if it's a public profile. Just be transparent that, hey, you know what? What I always do when I train my sales teams and myself when I get on calls is like, hi, I'm Mark. I'm calling from Mark Petapalt Business Coaching. Listen, just so you know, before I picked up this phone, I wouldn't want to waste your time. So I've done a little research and I think we're a fit. Having said that, I'd like to validate that with you and have a little bit of a conversation. But before I do, I see you're a diehard Habs fan like me. When did that start for you, right? And so now my personal connection's coming. Hey, and listen, I see that you're the manager of training and development at this company. It's the reason I reached out to you. I was on your LinkedIn profile, and hey, what a great background you have. You've moved from like a small company to a larger company, and now you're in Canada's biggest company as their manager of training and development. Talk to me a little bit about that. How did that happen? And you're getting a little bit of background, but you're building trust. And it's sincere and it's authentic. I researched you. I wouldn't have picked up the phone and wasted my time calling you if we weren't a fit. I wouldn't have bothered you by picking up this phone. That's what you're saying by saying this. Okay, and so, I talk one personal connection about Habs, hockey, hobbies, whatever it may be. One personal connection about their role. I see that you're this person. How did you get there? What are your responsibilities? And then I'm going to start talking corporately. Hey, I see that, your company, big, massive company X, you do your own in-house training and development, which is phenomenal. I'm curious, though, how do you reach across the country when it comes to leadership behaviors? Because I see in your corporate website, the level of leader that you have at a senior level in your organization is extremely impressive. How does that cascade down to your managers? Oh, well, we have our own in-house department. Okay, and what do you train on? Well, we do some coaching training. That's great. And okay, and what else? Well, we do a little bit of this training. Okay, here's why I asked. I'm building a business where I have coaches across the country. So if you use a third-party provider, here's the advantage of using me. One, I'm going to customize my content, and I'm going to send that all over to you. But I'm not going to bother you with coaching training because you've got it. But I got this real cool thing called connection meetings. And I've got this other thing called professional development strategies. And lastly, in my sales training I take across the country, I can be less of an impact on your resources. You'll approve all the content, and I'll have one of my facilitators do it for you in each of those major markets, as an example. How much time do you have to talk about that today? And so this is the personal and the corporate connection where you heard my value add is like, I'm not just one trainer, I've got trainers across the country. And here's how I can allocate them for your needs, but here's how I keep you in control of the process. So what I'm trying to do is reduce the resource requirement so they can concentrate on other things, but also let them keep control in the content that I'll give them to start with and customize it. I'm throwing out an example here, but there are a million of these in every different industry. And so you heard me talk about the green trucks for the individual, and hey, you guys are green friendly. Boy, I see that you just did a bunch of Tesla trucks. Does that carry over to your print needs for such a massive company? Well, what do you mean? Well, I think I have a way of managing your communication needs on paper in an environmentally friendly manner. And I'm not talking about recycling. So let's talk a little deeper. And so now you're seeing that built. Okay, but again, I'm going to give you some examples. When we're done that, again, I think I said this a few times already, but I'll say it again. If you do that better than anyone else, you'll crush everyone. Your customers will love you because you're coming from a position of understanding and only selling them what they need. And actually uncovering problems they may not even know about as you're inquiring and proactively solving that need by one of your offering. Okay, so your people and your customers will love you and they'll be being treated the way they want to be treated. The other thing is, even if you're learning this skill and it takes you a while, the majority of salespeople aren't selling this way. You know it. Look at your LinkedIn box. Every freaking invite is a template to sell you something, and you can tell it from the first 3 words in the sentence. Now, when we give you the tools to do this and you reach out online or in person showing up that way, you're going to stand out differently from anyone else. And it's fair. There's no trickery. You're actually showing your customer respect by figuring out if you can help them before you pick up the phone. And then finding a way to connect with them so you can expose them to that offering and why you do it better. So those two things, it is too, researching and connecting, but both at a corporate and personal level. Okay. And once you've done that, this is where you've got to become really great in the art of inquiry. Okay. So you're going to ask questions to validate that research and keep the conversation going. Or ask the question that steers to your research. You saw me do that in the example below about the print with the Tesla trucks for the big distribution organization, right? You need to become adept at the art of asking what I call NSRs, non-selling related questions. So this isn't how many shipments do you do a year? Who is your current provider? Have you thought about green FSC paper? This is, so talk to me about your business needs. What's your biggest priorities? In your role, which by the way is a fascinating one, we talked about your development. What's your biggest accountability? And what's your biggest roadblock in delivering that accountability? Right? So these are about the person, not about your product. So they may end up helping you sell, but you're not selling your product this stage, you're inquiring. So they need to be open-ended. They can't be answered with a yes or a no. And the reason that is it keeps the dialogue going. Okay. And so if you get stuck with asking close-ended question, here's the trick. Ask a lot of whys, hows, whats, whens, and wheres at the beginning of your conversation and those questions. You will find if you use those, they can't be answered with a yes or no in the majority of the cases. Okay. Probably in all of the cases. So you need to ask open-ended questions, and they need to be based on research and value need. Okay, so what I mean by that is, you're going to ask the questions based on what you've done in that research. So, you're not going to say, what do you do? You're going to say, hey, as the manager of skills and development at Acme Widget Company, what's your biggest priority? Now, that's a non-selling related question because it's open-ended and it's based on knowing a little bit about them and demonstrating it and the value that they need. Well, I need to do my job. The value that I'm trying to figure out is, what is that? That's why I'm asking the question. So if you think about NSRs, what I want you to do is I want you to ask, I keep doing this because I'm hoping you'll see this properly. I want you to ask 1 to 2 personal NSRs, and I want you to ask 1 to 3 organizational NSRs. Okay, so when you're having that dialogue at the beginning of the conversation, let me show you what that would look like. You've researched that they are, again, I'll go back to the manager of print communications for the biggest distribution company in the country. Okay, and they also, in your research, you found out they're the diehard Habs fan. I keep pushing the Habs fan thing. Odd for a guy who worked for the Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment for 5 years, isn't it? But I grew up in Montreal. What do you want me to say? So I know from my research, manager, print, and I know Habs fan. Okay, and down here I did some research and I found out about the Tesla trucks. I found out about the national distribution. And I found out about centralized marketing team. I'm going to throw that in. Okay, so by researching the organization through their website, the stories, Google, LinkedIn, I found out that they just invested in these green-friendly Tesla trucks because they are a green-friendly focused company. I also saw that they have national distribution, so they've got these regional super centers across the country, so they operate in all the provinces. And that their marketing team, although they operate from a distribution perspective and retail perspective across the country, their marketing team's all in Toronto. Okay, so this is what I know from that research. Here's what my non-selling related questions are going to look like. Open-ended, driven from my research to add value. Hi, Dina. Mark Pettipaw calling here from Acme Printing Company. Listen, I'm online, I'm doing some research, trying to find out the companies we could potentially help. And before I ever pick up the phone, I kind of go through a process to not bother people. And having done that research, I found out a little bit about you and a little bit about your company that I think we might be able to help you with your initiatives. But before I do that, here's the first thing I found out. Dina, you're a Habs fan. So am I. Where did it start? Oh, Mark, I grew up in Montreal. That's cool. So did I. Yeah, did you go to school in Montreal? Yeah, where'd you go? Oh, I went to Richelieu Valley High School. Shut your mouth. I went to CVR. Oh my God, that's crazy. Cool. Well, hey, we're having a rough year this year, but it looks like we might make the playoffs. Um, Listen, Dean, I see that you're the manager of print communications, and as I mentioned, I'm the vice president of sales and marketing at Acme Printing Company. So there's clearly a reason I called you today, other than your love for the Habs. I need to know a little bit about, what's your biggest priority in that role? Well, Mark, I've got all these distribution centers to take care of, and all the stores want something different. And so it's hard. So, we got a lot of customized variable print. And then we've got a lot of like these national campaigns that go on, and it's the same in every location. So it's really interesting to control the brand in that environment. Okay, and what about fulfillment, Dina? Like, geez, let alone brand control. How do you fulfill that across the country? Oh, well, we got a printer in Toronto, and they ship it out to everybody across the country. Okay, that's good to know. Well, boy, that sounds like a big role. Listen, the other thing I did, Dina, if you don't mind me asking a couple more questions before I kind of share with you how I think I might be able to help, was I researched the organization a little bit. I never would have even known there was a thing like a Tesla 18-wheeler that you guys just bought. I saw the article, the news article this week. That's tremendous. You bought 500 Tesla trucks. That is a massive investment. Where does it come from? Well, Mark, like the organization we want to have a positive impact on the environment. We want to leave the world a better place. It's in our vision and values. And so this is just consistent with that approach to how we do business. So that's tremendous. I love that. And the other thing I saw, you were mentioning a little earlier, you have national distribution with all these regional centers and retail locations. And I asked you a little earlier, but like, how do you specifically like order print for all those locations is kind of my first quote. Oh, again, Mark, like I mentioned, it's Toronto based and they ship it out to all the locations. So we try and minimize the customized approach. And there's a variable website where the managers can go in and type what they need and it auto populates the location and we print it for that location. But again, it's out of our provider here in Toronto and they ship it out. Okay. And then lastly, I did see that you have a centralized marketing team. So that's pretty cool, but it must be hard to manage all those managers from across the country. What's that like? Well, Mark, everyone's got an opinion on a campaign and they all want their stuff faster because these stores are massive, like they're 100,000 square foot stores and it's not easy to flip over a promotion. And so, we've got to work with people who help us accomplish that quicker. Okay, well, listen, if I heard you right today, Dina, first of all, it was all about the Habs, right? I'm just teasing you, Dina, of course not. You have some needs that you got to control your brand, if I could summarize it best. and manage cost, but service regional markets while getting that consistent brand message across the country. And you guys are really interested in doing that in a green-friendly way. I think I might be able to help you actually get those print campaigns to your locations faster at less of a cost and in a green-friendly manner. How much time do you have to talk about that today? Now my sales conversation is set up. Now, how different is that? Sorry, I get upset because I get pissed off, and I don't blame the sales professional because no one's training them. We send engineers off to get their certification, and we send lawyers to the bar, and we send doctors to medical school, but salespeople, here's a list, go sell. So I get passionate about this, but how different does that sound? It's not that much work, and you will get much better of a connection with a client than if you called Dina at that big distribution business that has retail locations across the country, large box stores, and say, hey, it's Mark from the printing house. You're on my list. And of course, you wouldn't say that, but that's what you're sounding like. Are you happy with your current print provider? She works in one of the biggest distribution companies across the world. Do you think she's got time to change her provider if there isn't a valid reason for doing so? She's too busy. It doesn't hit the radar. The way you get through is to understand her and ask the questions that will build the trust, have the connectivity to get her excited about what you do. Now, in the next few sections, I'll take you through how to position the value. What do you do in service? What do you do in quality? What do you do in price? How do you do that from a boomerang perspective? So when I'm talking to Dina, I say, and by the way, we're the only ones who are FSC certified in the country. No one has that stock. I'm the only one who does it in Canada. Now, I solved your green problem. I'm aligned. I've got a great brand story for you. You're still doing the right thing. It's your next announcement after Tesla. And the boomerang fact is I'm the only one who can do it. So the boomerang fact is she's going to call other people, or she's going to go to her current provider and say, I need FSC paper. And they're going to say, well, we don't have it right now. She might change. Okay? But I'm going to take you through all that. Remember, I get excited, and there's only 5 behaviors. The first one is researching and connecting. The art of inquiry versus advocacy is going to carry through all 5 steps, but now we're focusing on inquiry. We're going to research 1 to 2 facts about the individual. We're going to research 1 to 3 facts about the corporation. We're going to engage the client with non-selling related questions. Hey, I saw that you're a huge hats fan. I was doing my research on you and the company. How did that come about? Talk to me about your role as the manager of print communications for a company the size of X. Hey, listen, thank you for that. I appreciate that. The reason I called and thought we might be a fit was I learned some interesting things about your company where we might be aligned. But can I ask you about the Tesla trucks too? Where did that decision come from? Well, blah, blah, blah. And here's what you're not seeing. Here's what's not being said, but is being said. You are different than every other yuck that picked up a list and tried to sell me something. You invested and took the time to figure out about me. You also invested and took the time to figure out my company. So I should probably listen to you because you might have something that would help me because you understand me. We gotta stop putting salespeople into position with no behavioral skills to solve the customer's needs. It's not their fault. If you're taking this training, it's not your fault. If you choose not to do it, it's your fault. Okay? But we've done that because we haven't prepared people to connect with the customer by understanding them. We have been always be closing. We're still living in Glengarry, Glen Ross, and Alec Baldwin, and first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado, second prize is steak knives, third prize is fire. Customers are fed up with that approach. They don't want you to reach out to them, to educate them on your product. They've done all that before. They've been on your website. They've seen all your social media. They've talked to friends. They want to talk to you when you can tell them you understand them and you understand the problem and why differently you can solve that. That's when a customer wants to talk to you. Go make it happen by putting the work in the front end. Okay? So I'm going to quickly take you through the form now in these last 10 minutes, and I'm going to explain how you can do each of these. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so sorry, and the last point about getting the customer saying yes to gain their commitment. This is where we have all their bought in, and the question that I asked that I probably went too quickly on, I want to be a little more literal, is saying, now that we agree that we got a pretty cool connection and our companies may align based on your needs and what I think we can provide, how much time do you have to talk today? Don't ask, can we talk a little further? That's a close-ended question. Do ask, how much time do you have to talk today? Because that will encourage them to talk about it right away, but also give you the parameters not to upset them. Well, I got about 5 minutes if you want to go now. Well, you know what? Actually, I want to take you through it. I'd love to show you a little more stuff. How about I set something in the calendar? What's the best time for you where I could have 10 minutes? But opening that open-ended question gets both parties agreeing to moving forward with the conversation so you can dive deep on your offering and get the commitment to buy. So getting the customer to say yes to gaining the commitment to move forward in the dialogue at this stage. And that's what all this stuff does. All the research elevates your chance of them actually wanting to hear what you can do. Not doing this automatically gets you the 9 out of 10, not interested, not interested, not interested. Oh, by the way, I had another person call me this morning. I like my existing partner, not interested, not interested. And that's why it's happening. There's no connectivity. There's no relation to their business. You haven't done your research, so they're not feeling respected. They're not feeling an alignment, so they won't give you that time. So the last step on this, after you've done that research, prepared those questions, is to now ask for the commitment to talk a little further, but again, do it open-ended. How much time do you have today to discuss? The worst cases are going to say, I have none. Hey, that's fair. I'm glad I asked. When would you have 10 minutes? Again, open-ended. When would you have 10 minutes? And let's mark it in the calendar. Not, do you have 10 minutes sometime in April? No. When do you have 10 minutes? Okay. So there you go. What I want to do now, as we move through this slide, there's some exercises that I'll encourage you to do on your own, but what are all the ways you can find out about a customer's business and the prospect themselves? And I gave you some examples with social media, Google, corporate websites, LinkedIn. Where else could you go to find out information, challenge yourself? Prepare some of those, and again, this is when I do my corporate training, we do exercises here. Prepare some of those on your own, those open-ended, non-selling related questions. So when you get research on your prospect, write the 1 to 3 questions out in advance. See how they feel when you ask them. Make sure they're open-ended and challenge yourself. Would you engage in the conversation based on the question? What I'd like you to do now is, now that you've done this, go back and look at 3 prospects that you have in your lists or your database or in your notepad of people you want to go after, and write down what you know about them without doing the tricks I just taught you. So at top of your head, without looking at the website, without looking at LinkedIn, what, if anything at all, do you know about the decision maker? What, if anything at all, do you know about their company? And what leads you to believe that those 2 worlds should go together? Your offering should match their needs. I want you to challenge yourself to write down 3 prospects and what you know about them. And then I want you to go back and I want you to do these. And I want you to take those same 3 prospects and I want you to write down now what you know about them. The level of empowerment that you're going to feel as a sales professional and a customer service expert, because that's what this does. It gives a great customer experience at the same time you're exposing to the product, is incredible. You will feel completely different about getting on the phone or sending that email. That's or having that conversation. That's usually what puts us on our heels, is we think no is coming and we don't think we're going to get the time from the person. And when you do the research, you're empowered to know, wait a second, I can really help Jim or Gina. Like, I know them, we're the same, and I know what they're doing. And my God, we are better than our competitors if I expose them to this. That's the level of confidence you're going to have. So do the exercise, take 3 prospects, do it without any web support, anything, just what's in your head, and then take those same 3 prospects and go back and do what I just taught you over the last hour. You will see, you will feel much more empowered and much more prepared for that sales engagement. Okay, this is the next chapter, so I'm going to back out of that. What I want to show you next is I want to show you the sales form that you have. When you get these training videos, whether you've bought the whole course or you've bought this one module. So if you've bought the whole course, this form that I'm going to show you, all 5 steps are on this sales prep course. I call it my sales strategy form. And they're there. If you've bought just this course, again, you're going to see all 5. If you bought all 5, you're going to see all 5. But with just this training, the first box is the only one that's going to be relevant to you. So I'm going to show you this and assume you've got all 5 courses. And this is just the first step. But if you don't, I'm going to show you how to do an example of researching and connecting. So let me bring up that coaching form that is here in your customized account in the training portal. So if you're looking for it, it's on the left-hand side. You'll see a little document. Click on it. It'll take you away from the video when we're done. It'll allow you to download that in PDF, and you can print it as many times as you want. You can take my logo off, put on your own if you want, repurpose it. I don't care. I just want to see you succeed. Okay? So let me show you right now. Okay, so this is the sales path strategy document, and there's 5 behaviors. Okay, so there's number 1 that we're going to focus on, and then the second one you're going to see, which is the next training module, inquiry versus advocacy. And then there's the third behavior, confirming the go forward and building value. And then there's the fourth behavior, confirming the go forward and building value, but from a different perspective. I'll explain that, why we put it in twice. And then overcoming objections. Wait a second. Okay. Yeah, ignore that. That is a mistake. The form, when you see it on when you see it online, you'll see the fourth behavior. The behavior's been doubled up on 3 and 4. My apologies. But the actual content below it is different. So it's just the title. So I'll clean that up and you'll have the clean version, okay? So let's talk about number 1. So sales behavior number 1, research and connecting. We just did a full training on it, and this is prepped in advance of the call. So some of them you will see a note where you can do it in advance of the meeting or the call. You'll see it in purple. And then when you get down to the third behavior, that's all live. And it's all based on the feedback they give you and how you can keep some notes to respond. Okay, back to number 1. So remember, personal observation and NSR question number 1. So again, learned they were a Habs fan, learned they were the manager of print communications. I'm going to write that in there, and my question is going to be, wow, what a dramatic role. Sorry, what a big role in a big company. Talk to me a little bit more about your number 1 priority as the manager of print communications at X. I'd probably lead with the personal one before that about the Habs. Like, hey, I've been researching online about companies that fit what we can do. Just reach out and see if there's an opportunity there. And you showed up. But before I do that, my gosh, the first thing I learned is that you're a Habs fan too. Where did that start? And I'd probably start with the NSR on the Habs personal, and then the personal about the role. And then the next is, as you go down, those 3 NSR questions about the business. So again, that was, hey, talk to me about the Tesla trucks. Why did you guys make that investment? It's great for the environment. Is that part of a bigger mandate? What was that? Open-ended, open-ended. Second one, again, as I mentioned earlier, would have been about the distribution. And the third would have been about how does it work to have a centralized marketing team with 200 retail locations across the country? What are your biggest priorities, and how difficult or easy is that? I'm steering those questions as I get better As I get better at these behaviors, I'm going to try and steer those open-ended questions and look for research that aligns to those boomerang facts. Remember, I told you that earlier on. So if you learn something that, oh my God, that's important to them, and we're the only ones who do it in our industry, boy, you want to ask a non-selling related question that will lead you to that fact down the road in the sales presentation. So I look for those. Okay. And then statements to confirm you are aligned and get immediate commitment to discuss. So I usually write down paraphrasing statements, and then I ask for the opportunity to talk further. So out of those questions above, I would say paraphrase means repeating it back. So I'm keeping notes while Dina's talking. I said, oh, Dina, if I heard you correctly, your biggest expectation and biggest struggle is keeping control of brand communications with a centralized marketing team versus a decentralized implementation program. Like, you got to go to all these locations, and all stakeholders have a different want and desire. The other thing I heard was, like, your company's big on green. Like, it's just that important to you. It's in your vision and values. And lastly, I heard turnaround on print materials into those locations is critical because stores don't have a lot of time to do their visual merchandising changeover in their 100,000 square foot stores. So things need to be there on time. Did I hear that right? Now that's paraphrasing. I'm repeating back what you told me was important to you. Why? Because I'm going to now lead in that we're on the same page, that those are important to you. Here's why they're important to me, and here's how I can service those needs. So I'm going to paraphrase that. This is your soft close happening right from the beginning, straight from the research into your paraphrasing. And the ask now isn't for the sale. It's saying, okay, if I've heard all that right, um, how much time do you have for me to explain to you where I can add value for those three top needs? How much time do you have today? And I'm getting commitment now to demonstrate why I can solve those needs that I asked the questions on based on my research and why they're boomerang facts and how I'm different. Okay, there you go. My apologies on the doubled up sales behavior 3 and 4. And just so everyone knows, I'm so transparent and like just I'll fix it. You'll see it in the fixed document to the side here. It's simply I copied and pasted the wrong behavior number over twice. The numbers in below it are different. So you'll see behavior number 3, confirm, go forward, and build value. And the behaviors are different than the ones in number 4. It's just the title that's the same. I got to change that. So my apologies. I hope you got a ton load of value out of this. I hope it has you excited for now when we start to move to some advocacy. But I think you would agree that this will build trust, it will build connection. And this is number one thing you can do to get more sales opportunity is understand your buyer and show them that you understand, confirm it through asking open-ended questions, paraphrasing back that you've heard them, and aligning it to where you believe in the same thing and can do it better than anyone else. So that's sales behavior number 1. I hope you enjoyed it, everybody. And we'll see you at sales behavior number 2, I hope, which is inquiry versus advocacy. So we talked about that theme going through this whole seminar. I'm going to dive deep on how you use inquiry versus advocacy to prepare the sale by spinning the value business triangle and preparing the value equation. See you at module number 2.